What is up? Welcome back to the Supercoach Experience podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Savage, the coach of the Xavier Turbos. I'm joined by the Pretenders. How are you?
I'm pretty good, mate. I'm just cruising after filming the main potty and keen to get into the real stuff, answering the Q&A, and hopefully Howie doesn't have any curly ones for us this week.
Oh, this is the deep and dirty stuff where we get down and dirty with the dirt and the dirty. So we've got Dan on the Patreon. This is the Q&A podcast, by the way, if I didn't mention. Dan on the Patreon. Appy's minutes look fairly secure for the time of being. Would you say he's a good upgrade for Tavanga off the bench? Cook's role also looks good going forward.
Fine with both of them, but don't think they move the needle. That'd be mine. I don't think it. I certainly wouldn't be selling Jazz. Who knows what could happen to Gerbo on any given week or any of their other forwards. They have guys going down like it's like they got the plague in Manly. I think I'd just hold Jazz for now. Is Jules also handy? I think Appy, he's still under a bit of pressure from those young kids he's got a bit of pressure on him, and Cook's role, whilst it looks good, is not known. Let's be clear on the role of Damien Cook at the moment. Too many injuries at the Dragons the last few weeks, and that has potentially distorted his role.
I agree. We talked about Damien Cook in the last podcast. I think hooker is a position with not much upside, and I think by chasing these sort of low upside plays, you're not really doing yourself a disservice, a service. Like if Jazz is your starting hooker, surely you've got a Sandon Smith there who does well. If you have to play Jazz off the bench this week, so be it. He scores 50 points. Cook could easily score 45 points as someone who you thought was an upgrade. So,
yep.
Coruscant, different story. I think he's got more attacking upside, but at the same time, playing Penrith this week, I don't know how many attacking stats he's going to get.
I'm just not rushing into it. He's just, I'm not. Nice, mate.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not really rushing into hooker at the moment. I actually am of the opinion that I want to do 2 more trades at hooker this year. One gun being probably Watson or Harry Grant. I don't know yet which, but I'm assuming only one of them. And 2 will be nuffing my second hooker position, and that's what I intend to do. That's my plan.
Yeah, well, I'm making 1 trade in hooker for the rest of the year. I'm holding Sandon. I think he's got enough upside to play on matchup. And as
it's just
backup,
the goal kicking for me. But yeah, he loses that floor, but he keeps the ceiling still.
I think he keeps it.
You think he'll keep it over Walker?
He's kicking so good.
Yeah, he's kicking well.
He's kicking very
fair
good.
Play.
Walker's coming on from an ACL too. So.
I wouldn't be selling him until we see him lose the cooking.
The cooking. It's been a long day. It's been a long day. Matthew Gibson, with trades being low, if you have Turbo and Teddy at fullback, would you cop an AE or trade Turbo? AE should be 40 plus. I think you should have like a Drinky or a Pappy in the flex. If you don't, this would be the week I'd get it, because I think copying of AE in fullback, it's rough.
I'm copping an AE at hooker this week, personally. So if you, it depends. It depends on your team structure. Like most of the time your AE tends to drop out anyway, right? So all it really does is change what your 17th score might be. You might lose. It might have been 46 and you get 42 or something instead. Like, I get it, but it's a bit short-sighted to just jump off those 2 guys who both play next week. So my view would be hold them, because like you said, Savs, with your team, Turbo actually will be a pretty nice pod next week, and probably like he's got to pay you back at some point, you'd think.
I'm actually so excited that he's missing out, because it puts more people off him, and he's one of the this is really good for his physical strength,
for the rest of his body.
For the rest, he looked really good in his last outing, and I don't think the injury is major. They're playing it cautious. He's gonna be 100% fit. I guess the thing is, does he go at that 110% kind of what we're used to him going, or does he kind of conserve his body for late in the year? Because every year he's done this 110% kind of effort, and he hasn't been there for the end of the season. Maybe he's just trying to play different this year. Wants a premiership. He's happy to conserve his body and have it at its peak at the later stages of the season. I mean, what I saw from him last game, he was trying to get there in health. He looked close to there. If he is there, I feel like even Turbo going 85% is better than you are thinking.
No, I'm actually agreeing because the week before that, when he did still look busted, he also I know he ended up with hardly any points, but he blew a try, dropped the ball, and he made 2 really bad passes that Lehigh would have strolled over on. I remember saying in the WhatsApp and everything, like he was literally he just didn't look himself, and he normally ices that sort of stuff. Like it wasn't hard. It wasn't like, the fancy Latrell ball cutting out 3 players to hit the winger on the chest. It was like stuff that he normally just waltzes, and you can't factor that into scoring, but you can factor that into your eye test and what you think might happen moving forward. And then last week you're right, last game he played, he looked really, really good. So that's why I think he should hold both, because you're certainly not selling Teddy.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I would take the AE.
I'd honestly be looking at ways to get in one of the other fullbacks.
But that's what I'm assuming he's going to have one of them in the other slot. I would think. So I'm assuming this is a person who's got 3 fullbacks. Yeah,
because one of them's got to go and flex.
So one's playing and the other 2 are out. And the other small advantage, and it's it doesn't always work out. Quite often it doesn't work out, but there are some really good VC options this week. You get a free loop. I wouldn't be purposely not trading just to have a free loop, but I would be considering it as a leaning, as a positive. That's how I'd see it.
100%. Let's go to Matt. Thoughts on downgrading Munster to a cheapie to free money for other halves? Already have Campbell. To free money for other moves. So downgrading Munster to a cheapie. I like the matchup this week, so I'd hold off.
Yeah, it goes along with what I was saying in the main potty, which is don't rush. I think that's a perfectly fair move next week if you've already got Campbell. Yeah, but not this one. That's not what I'd do.
Howie, is going early on Trell a good idea if you're happy with your team this week and knowing he's playing Origin, like it as a pod at his price?
It is a big pod move, and it would depend on how you want to view it. I think Latrell will back up after Origin 2 because Souths have the buy-in round 19. So I think he will play this week, miss 15, play 16 and 17. So he'll play 3 of the next 4 weeks, but then he'll miss a fortnight. So I think you need Tedesco. That's the guy that I can see at the moment. I don't think you have to have Drinky if you don't own him already.
Yep.
I think he's going along fine as I own him. I'm happy to have him, but he's not. He's just, they've changed their structure a bit and he's settling into that. I think I know you want to sell him, but I'd love to have I want Pap from 16 onwards. I do have him, but
yeah.
So for me, it's just hard to work out where you fit. If you've got Tedesco and Pappenhausen, then I'd say yes, you can have him, but I wouldn't do it myself. But for those of you that are a bit less risk averse than me, and Howie, I know you're up the pointy end, I would think it's a huge pod move for him to potentially make some ranks in the next 3 or 4 weeks. I think there is a chance that that's the case.
Oh, I don't think so at all, to be honest. I think if the draw was better, he plays Canberra this week.
Teddy did just carve them up a bit though, and they're actually surprisingly not in the top 8 defensive teams in the comp. Surprisingly,
yeah. I don't like the matchup for Latrell. There are certain teams who, even good matchups that I like Latrell playing against. Like Latrell against Penrith just always seems to do really well. But against Canberra, the Bulldogs he tends to do well against, but he plays them in round 15. He'll be out for Origin. He plays Melbourne in round 16. You'd
have to think they might rest their guys there.
That's
up in Sydney, isn't it?
It is in Sydney. They'll be coming from Perth. They are playing there on Saturday, so there's every chance they do rest. But I don't know. I just don't think it's the play you need to do.
I don't think it is either. I agree with that. What I mean is purely if you're the type who wants to take
he could score well, but the chance of him scoring so well that
it shoots you ahead is not high. I agree with that. And I think, how he loves his pod moves. I wouldn't do it. It would not happen in my team. He's missing 3 of the next 6 games.
Yes, I agree. Blake89, I always like Blake's questions. Out of all the boys on the podcast, who is the best rugby league player and why?
It's not me.
Must be Timmy.
I doubt it's Timmy.
Must be Mike.
Hads is a rangy back rower, I reckon, but he can't play either.
We've seen him. We've seen him with the Panthers boys.
Yep.
Lindsay Smith.
Lindsay Smith, yeah.
We saw him in the Penrith uniform. I mean, this is a boring question.
Is Jake any good, at least at touch?
Oh, Jake. I've played Oztag with Jake.
Yeah.
I'm a humble dude, so I'm not going to answer this.
Oh, wow, that's fair. No, look, I think you've got us covered, Savs. I don't think that's much debate, to be honest.
All you have to do is watch the Sports Shed charity match highlights. I think I've scored over 40 points in both matches, Supercoach wise. 40 points, Jesus Christ!
Forward pass try assist.
I did a try assist where Todd Carney absolutely smashed me.
Yep.
And it was a good ball, though. Guru, I actually walked off. Guru was on the sideline. He's like, good ball, mate. And I was like, that was a good ball, wasn't it? And I just felt so good.
If you get that from Guru, just be careful. You might be going into his stable of gun youngsters because he's got an eye, that fella.
Yeah. We've got Gaz with Barnett out for the season. Which Warriors players could be a buy? None of them have really stood out. Metcalf is the one. I think forwards-wise, Halasima's passed.
I mean, Aaron Clark's a guy that you can he's just really, really solid. And he will now likely average 70, early 70s, I'd say, something like that.
I think his minutes are pretty locked in to where they are. So the Barnett injury didn't change anything for me.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that's fair. Maybe just a slight uptick in work rate, like point per minute, sort of thing. But the only guy I could see that is Jackson Ford. There's a chance that he becomes relevant. He's got the duel. He's in the 500s. The only issue I have with him is, I don't know how much of an uptick in minutes he gets, but he's already priced sort of in a decent range. He does have a really good work rate. He's actually a good footballer. I'm disappointed. Well, it's been a while now, so I probably should be over it. But I'm disappointed that we let him go because he was kind of one of our gun youngsters coming through for a while. He's not a great defender on the edge, and that's what let him down. But Jackson Ford would be the guy. I'd probably have to suggest you do a little bit more looking into his base power, but that's it for me.
Very nice. Hold on, I'm just doing the description. We've got one more from George. Is it too early to nuff?
If you've already got one, I'm not doing it just yet. But I've got to understand what people's definition of nuffing is, because I've heard people referring to Lawson as a nuff play this week.
Well,
I don't think he is.
In that same question, he said, thoughts on Lawson, is it too early to nuff? I mean, I like Lawson better than enough, but I think situation-wise, we've got a deeper squad because of the flex. If you don't have enough already, I don't mind it because, a lot of us are going with enough or two. Like, I've got Geimer and Hunt, and I feel like my depth is going to be okay for the rest of the year.
It is getting close to the time where I would even recommend. It probably actually the other side of this buy, like 15, the others maybe 16 or that sort of time. I'd actually recommend a second nuff. I think it is time. Like, we're getting close.
Yeah.
But if it's your first nuff, go for it.
And also, how many trades are you off your final side? Yep. If you're 2 players away from your final side, then I think nothing's fine.
Oh, I'm.
Also depends on the position.
Yeah.
You can't nuff in 5'8", I don't think. Because just based on, I think the position with 2 players you can't nuff in the flex or fullback. It's got to be centre wing or second row, maybe front row if you've got a 4th front rower.
Yep. I would actually say that you should have your last centre wing, your last 2 RF, and your last front rower should probably be enough. And that's more for team balance.
The last centre wing. I think maybe the last second row, yeah.
I prefer to have less decisions. So you just got to, depends how much team value you have. And maybe this is an interesting debate for us to have, Sav. My theory on centre wings is if I've got 7 of them to pick from each week, It's actually can be quite hard to pick
Yeah,
them.
it's annoying.
And then if you want to play all of them, that's 3 of your reserves. So if you're playing 6 or 7 centre wings, what do you do with your extra fullback? What do you do with your extra halfback? What do you do with your extra back rower? You know, like it just, for me, it's about balance. And it doesn't mean that year to year it doesn't change. I'm not saying you must have enough in each of those positions, but and front row is a great example. Maybe this year you don't. Maybe this year you want to run with 4 front rowers because of how the season's gone. But that's my general outline. I'm historically against nothing in a position where there's only 2 players. However, this year I fully intend to have as little money in my second 5/8 and second hooker spot as possible. I will be nuffing people that I will be nuffing to duels that will allow me flexibility in future, but I would prefer to nuff there and use trades on the starters. I know we sort of touched on that in the main potty. That is specific to this season only. I certainly wouldn't be nuffing in, the fullback or halfback roles this year, that's for sure. But some year, I used to quite often run a Cam Smith and Robbie Farah or something like that way back in the day. Just depends on where the scoring is and who's there, who's available. This year, that's where I see 2 extra nuff slots, which may allow me to have a 7th centre wing. I might not have to do that this year. So everyone's going to be a bit different, but that's how I see it.
All right, speaking on that, that's enough. Let's good luck with your super coach, and we will see you next week. And
See you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday, cunts.